Boomers just have to go. I mean, they just have to go. I will be glad when boomers are gone because they're so untethered from reality that it's pathetic. The generation that had it, so good for so long and basically created the world, that we're faced with today. And just like that clip that I played at the beginning of this video, this is where things are going. Okay. Technology is replacing people not just on a robotic level. Oh, that's coming. The iRobot days are coming, especially if you go over there and you pay attention to Boston Dynamics and the things that they have, their robot doing. Once a few things are sorted out, once you combine AI with the body of a Boston Dynamics robot, once you sort out, power cells, if they come up with, something else, I don't know. I know they have nuclear batteries for satellites, but, some sort of self contained, small scale, nuclear fusion reactor, that, is the thing of sci-fi and the thing of video games. Once they sort that out, okay, the world is going to be a completely different place. And nothing that boomers are talking about, nothing that even these evangelical PragerU Christians are talking about has anybody prepared for that. I'm so sick of the way that boomers live in the past and they try to make a moral argument when it comes to, people working and those opportunities are no longer here. The fact that boomers are the primary ones that focused on taking these jobs overseas. 92% of the world's microchips are made in Taiwan, and the technology used to make those microchips and the software put on those microchips and the design of those microchips are from US firms. So this is where you get into the, where they try to slickly act like a product is still an American product because it'll say made elsewhere but assembled in the United States. That's my favorite one. It's made elsewhere. Okay, all these jobs have gone overseas, free trade agreements, all that crap, busting up of unions, and you got to listen to this bull crap from white conservatives, boomers, talking about how they want middle class behavior in a situation where they've eradicated the middle class. I mean, that's literally what they're asking for. All these ideas. Oh, if you work hard, and the opportunities will happen. All that. What you gotta do is you gotta pray to Jesus, and you gotta walk up somewhere and give a man a firm handshake and look him in the eye. And shit's just gonna happen for you. You know what I'm saying? This is garbage talk. This is garbage talk, especially in a situation where, all they want to do is cut costs. Everything that's happened technologically is fantastic for corporations. It's fantastic. It's also fantastic for people who want to break free away from corporate America and start their own small business and be able to do stuff online and use social media and basically go into this gig economy. But the center of the population, the center of the US population, again, that old model of the wonder years and the sorts of the neighborhoods where kids are riding around on their BMX bike in the suburbs and looking like, I mean, when you look at the movies, growing up, movies like Sandlot, movies like ET, right? Where you got all these kids, they live in a neighborhood, their parents got all different various, careers that they have to drive to and show up to, like that that is not going to be the thing for not only millennials but also zillennials. The wealth gap is just going to be just ridiculous. Not only is the wealth gap going to be ridiculous, but the amount of people that are in this, this stable place is going to be smaller. And the all you're going to have is all these and I really do have a problem with the conservative voices, right? About it's about personal responsibility and it's about hard work, and the opportunities just aren't there. I'm like, we're heading towards, y'all remember Back to the Future? Was it Back to the Future 2 or something like that? And I think they had, or was it Back to the Future 1? I forget. But anyway, one of the Back to the Futures, that Biff Tannen future after he took the almanac, and then, Marty McFly went to the wrong timeline and he went to the Biff Tannen future, and he came across his principal, and his principal was like shooting at a car that was driving by, and Marty McFly went up there to grab the newspaper off the front porch to see what year it was, I think is what he was doing, and his old principal from his previous timeline came outside with a damn shotgun and like a bandolier of shotgun slugs. Okay, that's what America is heading towards, and you see this in cities all across America. I know people want to make it a racial thing, but again, America didn't atone for its original sin. Black people got, railroaded with discrimination, Jim Crow, redlining, blockbusting, eminent domain, urban renewal, convict leasing, debt peonage, discrimination in the job markets, discrimination, when it came to mass incarceration, the CIA dumping drugs in the black community, right? So majority of the time you're going to see black faces up there. But over time, because this country doesn't want to address the economic core of the issue, it's going to spill into other places. And you see this all over the place. Black people are not the only ones running around with broken homes and kids out of wedlock. Now you got a whole bunch of white people running around with broken homes and kids out of wedlock, and those numbers are going to increase. They're going to increase. And PragerU and the conservatives just sitting there wagging their finger saying, oh, personal responsibility, when those jobs are no longer here, those pensions are no longer here. Okay, you got a generation that cannot afford housing. They cannot afford to purchase a home, right? And they somehow think that they're going to get this Christian utopia that they're talking about without having a stable foundation. Everything that they're saying, and this is the stupid part, because as I've said before, as an atheist, I'm like, yeah, you're going to find out just how powerless your Christianity and your religion is when you remove all of the other stuff. See, when people have resources, when people can make moves, when people have opportunities right around the corner, all they got to do is basically show up and be a hard worker, and it's there. You know what I mean? They can sit there and say God is good all the time, and they can say all that stuff. They can tell you about Jesus and how Jesus is working out for them. Look at their life. But when there's no opportunities there, that's not going to work for the majority of people. And you see this with the decline of Christianity in the West. The conservatives want to jump up and they want to say, no, things are declining because we don't have prayer in the schools. Things are declining because we don't worship Jesus like we used to. Right? And from a conservative biblical or Bible thumper point of view, yeah, I can see how that's what it looks like. But that's because they're intentionally ignoring, or just through ignorance ignoring, the other half of the equation. This country has less of the type of jobs that it had in the past. The jobs where you work with your hands and you go in there. I'm not saying that we're at the Jetsons level yet. I'm not saying that we're in the future yet. We're not there, but we're getting there. Okay, everything. There's a commercial. There's this video. I think it's like from AT&T. It's on YouTube making predictions about the future. GPS is here. GPS in the car. They predicted that. Cell phones. They predicted that. Dick Tracy talking on your Apple Watch. Okay, they predicted that. I mean, the freaking, what's the other thing? Damn, what's it called? Alexa. You know what I mean? They predicted. I mean, all that stuff, all the Zoom calls. Even Marty McFly getting screamed at, or Marty McFly Jr. getting screamed at by his boss over Zoom, which was ironic because that's the same as the Jetsons and whatnot. Even the Jetsons, the only thing that we don't have basically is like flying cars. Okay, so everybody thinks we got one or two directions to go as a society. Either it's going to be a futuristic utopia, or it's going to look like a nasty dystopian cyberpunk type of future, where people are running around and instead of people doing drugs, they're trying to augment their bodies with all of that. Oh, that'll be a thing. I mean, you see this with all the spring legs. Like, who's that guy that killed his girlfriend in Pretoria. I forget what the runner's name is. But I mean, they got the guy doing the TED Talks. He's got the bionic legs. You know what I mean? And all this stuff I think is cool. All of it I think is great and it's fantastic. But the whole post World War II, economy of manufacturing and people who have minimal education still being able to purchase a home and provide for a family and send their kids to college, like that has slipped away from the middle class. And I mean, and what like really irritates me, it's like, I do the hard math. Like, you're not going to get around me with the money. You're not going to get me around with the things that need to be in place. And these folks, they always want to focus on the intangible. Even listening to, Dave Ramsey, since he got screamed out of the room, as a boomer and doesn't know what he's talking. Now he's putting his younger people up to discuss, and it's the same talking points. It's still Dave Ramsey's talking points because it's a production show. It's his show, right? So I don't think that the young people that are up there, there's got a millennial guy and they got a Gen Xer that are up there that are basically, because they're closer to the Zillennials, right? Because I'm pretty sure Dave Ramsey, he looked at the numbers. He was like, yo, I can't talk about this because I know a whole bunch of younger people unsubscribed from David Ramsey when he came out with that video, talking about there's 7 million jobs and these young people and they're just lazy and whatnot, and so it's either Dave Ramsey or the machine that basically is trying to convince people that they need to go out here and be slaves, to go out here and work these jobs that do not enhance their quality of life. I'm sure you all have recognized this when you go and you're trying to get some fast food and the places are now closing at 9 o'clock. I used to go to McDonald's at like midnight. I used to go to McDonald's at midnight. I used to go to Taco Bell at like 1 in the morning. But please, those places, they all of a sudden you pull up and you can see it from a distance. The menu is dark. You can't even see the menu. That's how you know that they're closed. There's one Burger King around me. Literally, it has one employee. He's got to do the cash register and the food. So they don't have anybody who's trying to work there. The only people who are working there are people who just absolutely have to. But for a lot of young people, what do? They just end up staying with their parents, trying to look for and find something better. Some have, a lot haven't. And this is where this is where things are going, in terms of the future of America. And you have all these people that just they want to get up on the mic and they want to present their non-solutions. What's going to happen? It's kind of like what happened with the women, the dating coaches that quit being a dating coach, right? We talk about this in the manosphere. We talk about this, about the gender war. You got these female dating coaches that, white and black, who were like, look, I'm done trying to coach, trying to, match make for women, not dating coaches, I should say matchmakers. They've quit trying to match make for women because the women's expectations are completely unrealistic. The numbers that they throw out are absurd numbers. The average male in America, or the average person in America, is making $40,000 a year. And they're throwing up numbers. They all think that, six figures plus is what they're all going to have access to. Again, I mean, they're just as tone deaf as the boomers and the Dave Ramseys and all that. They're just as tone deaf. And what's going to happen is, for I'd say the last couple of years, Dave Ramsey used to have these titles of, and personally, I think it's currently happening to Dave Ramsey. He used to have these titles of people that would call in, I'm a Wall Street investor and I have $1 million to play with, Dave Ramsey. What should I do? Right? They got all these assets and everything else like that. But what's going to end up happening is basically the same thing that happened to Soul and Black when we were over there on Gen X, where he was talking all this nonsense and his math wasn't mathing, and then he had a guy come to him, and I called mediocre tutorials and reviews out about this too. Who had that blind guy that was talking about using his disability check, to trade on Forex. Can't even see, doesn't know whether he's got hundreds or ones. Okay, let alone see the damn bars and graphs on a computer screen. But anyway, um, um, Dave Ramsey is not going to have those type of people calling in. He had a woman that was, she was in New York and she was making $65,000 a year as a single mom, and he was like, oh, and you can always tell when Dave Ramsey recognizes that's no money, because he gets real quiet and he gets real humble and he's like, oh, like yeah, because it's nothing for him to work with. See, when a person calls in and they're like, hey, I got $1 million of assets, what should I do? Dave Ramsey, yeah, he loves playing with that. But when it comes to the people that got real world situations, he's like, oh, I mean, you gotta, this requires some serious austerity measures. But it's not even austerity. The fact is, you can't save what you don't make. Period. You don't make enough. You don't make enough on $65,000 is not going to make it on the island of Manhattan. It's just simply not. On top of the fact that she was a social worker, so she was completely maxed out. So what's going to end up happening is, again, the same thing that happens to these dating coaches. I'm quitting dating, being a dating coach because, all these women have unrealistic expectations. And then it's going to be, I can't be a financial guru anymore because all these people contacting me are broke. They have no money to invest. The show is going to slowly shift to, how do I save, to make it to the end of the month? What should I do? That's what it's going to turn into, because if people are broker than ever, then the show it's not going to be able to carry itself with these fanciful numbers of people that are in the top 10%. I mean, like, that's not going to carry the masses. You know what I mean? Before, upward mobility seemed like it was doable. Again, the whole, not even the concept of the American dream, but the whole concept of, if you work hard enough, you can accrue and, and gain enough to be able to do something with. But see, that's not the case anymore. Not anymore. And as you add more and more technology, it even goes to, like, what that video that I posted about, the, I don't know what, the jobs going overseas, and the TV company that shut down. I believe that the company was somewhere in Georgia, and they shut down because, again, they're making TVs cheaper in China. Many American companies are over there in China manufacturing TVs for cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And the companies that were trying to keep American factories open, they couldn't compete. Not when they got to pay the employee $20 an hour or whatever the heck it is, and the guy in China is making 50 cents. They cannot compete. the math ain't math. And so they eventually shutted the plant down. I actually looked up the plant. I put the link in the description box. That plant got sold, and I believe it was 2006 it got sold. So, that video is either from the late 90s or the early 2000s, but that plant is it's no longer there. But I remember what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought for a second, but it goes to in that video the high school principal said. The guy asked him a direct question. Well, what are these high school kids going to do now that the largest employer in the town is gone? And his response was, "We don't know. We don't know." And if that's your answer, don't be surprised about carjackings. Don't be surprised about home invasions. Don't be surprised about robberies. Don't be surprised about that shit. And and this reminds me of, Cap used to tell me about how when he was at GM, there were old guys in the plant. This is probably, the early 90s. Nah, yeah, mid 90s. There were guys in the plant. And mind you, in the 90s, the auto industry, yeah, the last people who were there, because remember all those buyouts? Remember, the auto industry eventually had to be bailed out. They were trying to get people to take their pensions early. You know what I mean? Young people, they don't even have the option of pensions like that. The pensions are gone. Reagan did a fantastic job for the corporations to get rid of and eliminate pensions. And so one of the things that Cap was pointing out to me is how you would have old guys in the plant that were close to retirement that would joke around. You know what I mean? And laugh at the idea, like, yeah, we the last generation in the plant, because, they're gonna bring the robots in now. They're going to bring the robots in. And if you look at any manufacturing plant now, if you just go on Google, they got all type of, cinematography type of videos, where they show you, these time lapse, videos of cars being put together and how many robots are in there. Or you look at, the Tesla factory and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, those robots did put a lot of people out of work. But the issue is the old men laughing about it. Like, you do realize that you have a son. I don't think there's anything funny about you joking about the fact that you're going to be the last ones in the plant. That's not funny when you got a 22-year-old son that's out here looking for gainful employment. You see, like this is why people jump up and they say that these boomers are the most selfish generation that has ever existed. Just, I mean, just the arrogance, the lack of foresight, the lack of thinking. And then they wonder why there's an explosion of gangs, there's an explosion of crime, and the only thing that Fox News has to say is, personal responsibility, white Jesus, and the Bible. That's what'll fix all of this, right? Nah, how about we get rid of all of the things that were put in place that gave all the edge to corporations basically cutting cost, at the expense of the American citizen. You know what I'm saying? You know what's unpatriotic? You know what's unpatriotic in this country? It's not the people, it's the corporations. If America was truly first, then the corporations would put America first. But no, it's all about capitalism. It's all about money. It's all about the globalist agenda. Because globalism essentially allows corporations to go anywhere in the world to find the cheapest labor for the highest return on investment, so that and then you get rid of the free trade agree or you establish free trade agreements, you get rid of the tariffs, you see? And in that way, you can manufacture products in Vietnam and ship them back into the United States. And then you can stock them up in Walmart, right? And then you can, have those products being sold, for the cheapest price, right? And then it's like a feedback loop, right? Because the broker Americans are, the more they're going likely to shop at Walmart because Walmart has the cheapest stuff, right? But Walmart has the cheapest stuff because Walmart basically sets the price on what products are going to be sold for. So then companies are forced to, basically, what's the phrase? You know, uh, uh, if you can't beat them, join them. So then they also go over to these second and third world developing countries and manufacture their goods over there, closing plants, laying off people in America. And so it just ends up being this endless feedback loop to where broker people shop at Walmart, right? For the cheaper products because they're not making a whole bunch of money and they can get those products, but eventually that whole system will collapse on itself. Eventually, it doesn't matter how cheap you're manufacturing a product in China. If people don't have jobs here, they can't afford to buy those products, and that'll affect Walmart sales. I mean, Walmart recently, the CEO put out a statement because so many people were stealing from Walmart. They were stealing from Walmart, even though Walmart's still making stupid profits. But see, that's the whole thing. People are going to do this shit until the wheels fall off. Same thing I say about the whole situation with the child custody and the courts and the child support industrial complex. I'm like, you have less men who are gainfully employed. You're incentivizing a lot of women's bad behavior, have babies with unproductive men. You have more women having babies with unproductive men and less productive men paying taxes into the system to support those single moms, the ever growing number of single moms. Eventually we will get to a point where there are more women taking money out of the child support system than men putting money into the system, because all that back child support, it has to come out of somewhere. It's not like, hey, your baby daddy's not paying child support, you don't get a check this month. No, the state, the local government, they end up paying that, and then they bill the man for back child support. But even my favorite thing that people always talk about doing, we'll throw them in jail. Okay, throw them in jail. That's the fastest way to not get your money. Like, you can't squeeze blood from a turnip. So at the end of the day, it's like the cost of that is always going to be kicked around. But that's the thing is that only works if you have a backup dude, a backup plan. You have somebody else that you can kick the can to via taxes. And I'm not trying to be all super doom and gloom, because do I think that we're there yet? No, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I mean, you look at every number statistic that you want to look at, okay? These numbers are upside down. And all we have is a bunch of boomers talking about the way to solve this problem is to operate based on a reality that no longer exists. It doesn't exist. Even the cost of getting an education is astronomical. It's through the roof. People want to talk about, oh, go out there and get some vocational schools. The man needs to be paid now. Now, not tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Not 3 years from now. Now. He needs money now. And they try, oh, what you got to do is you got to go and, do this, program and take this class and that you'll be paying for, by the way, and take this apprenticeship. That's what you got to do. That's paying you peanuts. And then eventually, after 6 years, you'll finally be where I'm at. Now, I know that not all vocations and not all things are that stupid, but there's a lot that are. You see, because there is a fight, to turn a lot of this stuff around. You know what I mean? But that's only at, a local level, maybe a state level, right? Especially when you got the waxing and waning politics of the way that Republicans want to do things versus the way that Democrats want to do things. Democrats if you look at the extremes, Democrats are on the extreme of Democrats is, free shit for everybody. And then the extreme of Republicans is pull yourself up by the bootstraps that you don't have. Right? And where the solution would actually be somewhere in the middle if we actually had, reasonable politics. But we don't have reasonable politics. We have this binary system where it's like people, they're not even throwing up stuff that even makes sense anymore. It's just kind of like, oh, what's my opponent's position? Oh, it's this. Okay, I'm the opposite. But does them you being opposite even make the same? No, but I have to give the voters the opposite choice because that's how politics work. And then we argue back and forth, and we use the media to put out misinformation, so that people have a very binary way of looking at things, where it's all or none in either direction. There's no balance. There's no, like, example, uh you know something like gun control, which I don't believe in. You know what I mean? But it's like we either going to ban all the guns, or guns for everybody. You get a gun, you get a gun, you get a gun. Like I've said before, I don't particularly believe in constitutional carry. You know what I mean? I don't, but see, example, I believe that if you don't have the type of personality that goes through the process of doing the paperwork and everything else like that, you know, um, I don't necessarily believe that you need a training requirement and all that. But I think that all the stuff with, okay, get the paperwork, get your fingerprints, have to sit down for like a couple hour course about firearm safety and what the local laws are. Like, I feel that you should do that. Okay, and then you can walk around, carry your gun all you want. But then on the flip side, right, I'll sit there and I'll co-sign that. But then, like, Democrats will come in and then they'll try to make that process so restrictive and so onerous that nobody can carry, right? Even though there's a process to carry, right? So I'm not about we should just have constitutional carry, but I'm not about the freaking the permitting process should be so arduous and so expensive that people say, oh, the hell with it. It's about there being some sort of balance. But because everybody's just trying to run out here and grab political points, and that's just one aspect, nothing gets done. The second aspect is the people that really don't want to have to, do what needs to be done. And this is one of the reasons why I hate religion. Religion makes it, you're either pointing to the magical or the fanciful, or you're telling people that, like Captain Planet, the power is yours, right? You're telling people that it's something that they have to do to make shit happen, even though, again, the freaking ruling class, the oligarchs, the business class are doing everything in their power. Like, they're actually making decisions, so that people aren't able to actually function because they don't have the resources. Things like, there's certain states are saying that there needs to be income. What do you call it? Pay transparency to know what people are actually making, right? But then corporations will make a disingenuous argument. Well, that prevents people from negotiating for their own salaries, individually, right? And conservatives, they'll jump up and they'll be like, yeah, if I'm a better negotiator, I should be able to be paid more. That doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? But they'll try to make it about that, when the reality is the corporations, they don't want there to be a pay disparity because, or transparency, not disparity, but they want there to be pay disparity. I'm sorry, they want there to be, pay. They don't want there to be pay transparency, because if there's transparency, how much does this job pay? Okay, this is a $70,000 job. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a $70,000 job. These are the responsibilities of the job. Bam. But they want to be able to have a situation, and this is directly from Captain Solo. They want to have to have a situation where you got two guys come in. The job literally is a $70,000 job, and one guy comes in and he's like, "Hey, how much do you want to be paid?" He wants to be paid $72,000. They could argue over that, right? But he's like $72,000. That's what I want to be paid. Okay, and the company reluctantly they say, okay, fine, we'll give you $71,000. Okay, so he walks off. He's got $71,000. Okay, the guy had experience, whatever. He walks off with $71,000. Then you get another guy that comes in and he's not that strong of a negotiator. And they say, well, Mr. Jenkins, what would you like to make? And he doesn't have a clue. He didn't do his research. He just kind of, maybe he moved from another state where the going pay was much different. So in his mind, it's a $40,000 job. And if he says $40,000, guess what the corporation is going to do? They're going to say, "Well, Mr. Jenkins, because you're such, we see the potential in you. Our client is willing to give you $45,000. $45,000. Oh man, shit. I'll take it. I'll take it," not realizing that he's, being screwed out of, what did that be, $25,000. He doesn't realize that he's being screwed out of that, right? Is that $25,000? Yeah, he's being screwed out of $25,000. You see, and he thinks that he's making it because he's getting $5,000 more than what he had suggested. You see, and that's the whole thing. Like, people, like, you got to look at it for what it is, man. People are screwing other people over, and what they're using is they're using, all these cliche sayings, all this, working is good for the soul, and you need to be, a hard worker, and they put all that dangling carrot stuff in front of you. The fact of the matter is, if you're out here looking for hope and inspiration. I call it, what did I call it in the past? The business of inspiration. Okay. And there's folks out here that they will business of inspiration it to death. And that's exactly what Dave Ramsey is doing right now every time he gets to talking about millennials and zillennials. It's the business of inspiration, and they're doing it to death because at the end of the day, America wants its slaves. This is why they want to open up the borders. Every 20 years or so, they want to open up the borders. They start talking about amnesty because the powers that be, the corporations, they want their cheap labor. This country was founded on cheap labor or free labor, the slaves. And again, I keep trying to tell these poor working class white people that this country is classist before it's racist. White supremacy is a goddamn smokescreen. You know what I mean? Like, freaking Europe there was what? Kings, queens, nobles, and peasants. That's what it was. You were a feudal serf. When you were a feudal serf, there was no idea of white supremacy. They weren't sitting up there going, I'm the king and the queen, or we're nobles and you're white too, and we got to go out here and assert our white supremacy. No, because it was just white people. They didn't even know half the rest of the world exists. All they knew was like China, and we want some damn tea and some spices. That's all they knew. But it wasn't until they left they said, "Wait a minute, there's a whole bunch of other people out here. Oh shit. Okay, well, we're not going over there. We just want to be rich. We just want them to funnel all these resources back to Europe. Okay, well, how do we do this? Well, we got to incentivize them. How do we send people to America to start all over? Like, oh, I get, we'll just eradicate the Native Americans, tell them, if you go over there, there's a whole bunch of free land, but you got to pay your taxes, right? You got to pay homage, right? That's what the whole Revolutionary War was about, right? Taxation without representation is tyranny. But ultimately, what it came down to is it came down to the fact that they just did not want to pay anybody. They didn't want to pay anybody. You know what I'm saying? And they wanted people to go out there and get all this stuff and funnel it back to them. They realized, okay, we got to give them something. whether it's land or whether it's a title or whether it's status. We got to give them something. We have to share something. We can't just give them nothing and expect them to go out there. And you'll see the same thing with, Elon Musk and trying to get people to go to Mars to colonize Mars. They'll be like, yeah, and you'll get all this land, the first person to go out to Olympus Mons, you'll be able to claim all of that land as long as you pay homage. Right, because nobody wants to do the dirty work. Nobody wants to go out there and risk their life and end up like be on some Matt Damon shit and whatnot. Nobody wants to do that. Fuck that. Let the people who want to explore, let the people who want to discover, let them do that. And it's only a matter of time. I'm telling you, you can go on YouTube, type in Titanfall, or Titanfall lore, Titanfall 2. Look at the lore. It will always turn into because if you look at space exploration, it's nothing more than an expansion of what has already happened on Earth. It will be, there will be some global federation of nations. They will go out there because it'll take a lot of money to put people in space, and they'll go out there and we'll be like, and we're gonna put you on this freaking spacecraft with cryostasis, and we're gonna put you out there like freaking Avatar and claim whatever, at some distant star, and you must pay homage. And sooner or later, they're gonna be like, hey. Okay, once we get faster than light travel, those outer colonies are going to be like, yo, why are we paying, freaking money and resources back to the inner colonies? Why are we doing that shit? You know what I mean? Like we're the ones that are making everything happen, and then there will be conflict over that because nobody wants to dish resources out. And this goes back to something that Captain Solo told me a long time ago, that the dynamic between employees and employers is always hostile. The corporation and the union's interactions are always hostile. Everything else, as far as I'm concerned, the racial shit, that shit is a distraction. Because when you boil it all the way down, and I'm saying, yeah, there is a racial component to it. If you have one race that controls all of the opportunities and another race that has to fight for those opportunities, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, there's always going to be, that aspect, the racial part baked into it, especially in America, given the economic disparities and how America was founded with one group on top and the other group at the bottom. But I'm saying at the economic core of it all, there's those who control the resources, and then there's those, who are just, the worker bees. And don't get me wrong, I don't have so much of a problem with, well, I mean, the person that owns the corporation and whatnot, he's the one that took all the risk. He's the one that did all the investment. He's the one that did all the planning. So he should make a majority of the money. I agree with that concept. Don't think that I don't agree with that concept. But see, the problem is when you start getting into what you see going on now, the extreme of people having these ideas of what it is to be a part of the American dream, and people at like PragerU and all these other conservative outlets are up there talking about people's Christian moral behavior, and they're throwing that up instead of paying people, but then they want people to act and behave as though they have resources when they don't. Like, no, that is a major fucking problem. It's a huge problem. And eventually it's just going to get down. I'm telling you, like, I keep saying the black community is the canary in the coal mine, and nobody wants to listen to me when I say that. I'm like, eventually this shit is going to hit the white community, and it's going to hit the white community hard. And you see this now when you see all these whatever and whatever people want to say about Antifa, that's all young white people. Yeah, there's some snowflakeism in there. Yeah, the left, I mean, excuse me, the far right wants to just claim, oh, that's just because they're woke. It's all about wokeism, because anything they disagree with, they want to label as woke. What I mean? But when you really look at the core of it, nah, a lot of those white folks are white folks who recognize the game for what it is. And a lot of the conservatives on the other side, they don't realize. I'm like, man, these corporations don't give a shit about you. You might have a nice job for now. You might sit there and be like, I get up every morning, da 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 da. But again, you got to look at the pay scale over time. It has remained stagnant, if not declined. And it remaining stagnant doesn't even matter if because it's going to feel like a decline if the cost of everything else goes up. And a lot of these conservative white folks, I'm like, nah, you just haven't hit rock bottom yet. You haven't hit the point where where you're sitting there and you're like, wait a minute, I've been getting up every day, busting my ass off, and I don't have shit to show for it. When those people realize that, then that's when you're going to see revolution in this country, and then that's when you're going to see, the voices jump up and say, okay, this shit's got to change. Okay. And like I said, when you start throwing in the all this, technology, GPT chat, the freaking, even, Dolly 2, again, if you have not gone over there, I haven't gone over to GPT chat yet, but I've been over here, messing around with what do you call it? The Dolly 2. And I'm telling you right now, like, you see my thumbnails on my videos, right? I could sit there and I Google those thumbnails. Like, those are, whatever. They might be copyrighted images from just Google images, which is funny because Google has kind of made it to where you can't save images now. It takes you to like some web something. I'm like, where's the image? Like, save the image to my downloads folder. Like, it won't save the image. Like, some of the images are turning into these web link images where I can't save the image. But then I said to myself, I was like, I don't even need the image. I could literally, because you know how my titles are. Like, my titles are very, like, you think I was writing a book. Okay, my titles are very kind of coded and whatnot. But I could literally type in on Dolly 2. I could type in, a situation. I could put in black woman with something something da 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 da, or I could put in white supremacy da 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 da. And maybe Dolly wouldn't do that one, but I can come up with some sort of cartoon, some sort of animated picture, right? I could come up with that to drive, my point of the video. Like, oh, that's an interesting photo. That's very metaphoric, right? I could come up with all type of metaphors, and bam, there's an image. Bam, that's my thumbnail for the video. Boop, there I go. I don't have to hire any painter, any artist, none of that stuff. I mean, I could just plug it in. Boom, bam, there it is, and bam, there's my thumbnail. And I'm not even an artist, but I got the damn AI to do it for me. So basically, all these artists, all these people that do the drawings and all that other stuff, ads, everything else, they're no longer needed because all they got to do is go up there and just copy, just type it in, and bam, voila, it comes up on the screen. And then look, you can even once you get four images, you can even click variations of those four images to get new images. Like, let's say the person is facing in the wrong direction or something, you can just hit variation and it'll give you a different angle or a different image, and you could just keep clicking through those until you get what you want. You know what I mean? Like, or you could just write a new phrase. This is where things are going. And so, like I said, you combine that, you know, that AI with a robotic body like Boston Dynamics. Once they figure out power cells and all that other shit, man, it's a wrap. This society is going to have to go to something like universal basic income. And I know what the people on the right are going to say. They're like, socialist, I'm communist. They're going to go crazy. You know what I mean? But you got to look at it for what it is. People are going to have to open their minds to the reality is once you become so technologically advanced, the whole old model of you get up every day and you go to work and you work with your hands like it's like you're toiling in some factory in the 1800s, in the late 1800s. That's no longer a thing. That's no longer a thing. I mean, again, the freaking Amazon's got floors that freaking move and shit like that, and all this stuff with the pickers. Oh, guarantee you, once Amazon can use robots to do the picking, once it uses AI to be able to identify packages or identify things with barcodes on it, all they'll have is like a human putting barcodes on it. They can fire everybody else. Or once they get to where Tesla or freaking Google perfect the cars driving themselves, like you won't have a freaking a damn you won't have a driver dropping packages off. All those people are going to be out of work. Okay, again, I keep referencing it, but again, watch Logan again when they were in the cornfields and he was at that black person's house. Go watch that again. Like when they were when Logan was in the cornfields and there was that highway and I forget what he was doing, whether he was fighting or something like that. Logan being Wolverine, you know what I mean? They had those trailers that had no drivers. It was just the trailer driving itself. This is where things are going. That's there's 2 million truckers in this country. That's 2 million truckers out of work. Again, we're not there yet, but it's coming. But the way that, conservatives run around talking about personal responsibility and pulling yourselves up by the bootstraps and hard work and all that other stuff, they're not looking at where things are going. They're so caught up on their racial bias and their racism or their biblical bias or their Christian bias and whatnot. Like, I mean, I don't even know how Christianity isn't even challenged, with this stuff about the things that Christianity says about, faith without works is dead. Okay, well, what if we take work out of the equation? Like I said before, you think aliens that can freaking fly around with their UFOs and go from solar system to solar system. Everybody's talking about the disclosure and the U.S. government about aliens and UFOs. Do you honestly think that they're like telling another alien like, oh, you don't do X, Y, and you got to pull yourselves up by your tentacles or some shit? Like, you honestly think that they're so advanced? They're ridiculous. Again, what do you do in a tier one civilization? What do you do in a civilization where I can literally go on the holodeck and freaking enact any fantasy or dream I have? And I'm saying the writers that came up with Star Trek and came up, and Star Trek is probably the best one because Star Trek, like freaking Star Wars focuses on the Third Reich if you really look at it. Right, the Empire and all that shit, and the markets are, it's very Wild West. If you look at the Star Wars universe, it's like the Wild West meets the Third Reich meets, the samurai and the Bushido Code. Like that's literally what Star Wars is. It's like all three of those things put together. Han Solo represents the cowboy element, freaking, Darth Vader and the Empire obviously represents the Third Reich, and then the Jedi represents the Bushido Code and all that other stuff, samurai stuff. So it's like multiple, and then you have the fantasy element of magic and sorcery, that being the Force. So you take all of that and you mash it together and you get Star Wars. Okay, but Star Trek is like, hey, we're in the what is it, the 24th century or some shit, like 25th century. I think it's the 25th century. You know what I mean? And literally, it's like, what is the purpose of Star Trek? And I'm saying some of y'all need to go look at Star Trek. Like, what is the purpose? Like, well, we're advanced, so like we go around the cosmos and freaking, discover other civilizations and monitor them, and we just want to know more because we know as much as we can know. And so everybody basically, it seems like everybody works for Starfleet because they never show you like what people do back on Earth, on Star Trek. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do? At that point, you got Datas walking around all over the place. Like, what do you do at that point? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got these synthetics walking around doing everything. Like, what do you do? Like, you want to really talk about questioning religion? You know what I mean? Like, you could sleep in bed all day. You could. I mean, what do you do with the lushes in society at that point? You know what I mean? Like you could be in virtual reality all day. You could play video games. Like, how does Star Trek? How do you divvy up whatever labor has to be done? You know what I mean? Like, and what is labor at that point? Like, what is it? This is the problem that I have with a lot of the delusional women on YouTube now that are talking all this feminist stuff and everything else. I'm like, you didn't lay down any optic wire. You didn't lay down anything that has to do with the very infrastructure that allows you to sit home, for Harriet, Tina Noir, Nappy Headed Hope. You didn't lay down any of this infrastructure that allows you to make money online and just sit home and pontificate. You didn't do any of that stuff. So again, like, we're not at the tier 1 level of civilization, but people have to seriously ask themselves, what does that look like when technology gets that advanced? Maybe it doesn't matter right now because we're not there yet. We still got people starving in the world. We still got, world hunger and crap like that. But I mean, you really got to look at the analysis, in movies like, what's the movie? Wall-E. You know what I'm saying? Movies like Wall-E, where you had all those fat people, in the armada of spaceships, and just a bunch of fat people, just being, hovered around. Like when you look at stuff like that, like how if technology advances to so much, how do you prevent lushes in society? And then on top of that, I mean, would it even matter if somebody was a lush? And it seems like there's this strong irritation with the idea of I'm working harder than you, and you're just feeding off of society. Well, again, how does that work in a Wall-E type of situation? Where you sit there and then you say, freaking, you know, you tell the machine what you want and it doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Computer, open the pod bay doors. I'm sorry, Dick. I'm afraid I can't do that. You see what I'm saying? I'm not now, and we're not in space. You see what I'm saying? Like this is the type of this is where things are going. But and then not only that, like, I mean, at this point, it requires that many more people become, educated. When you get to that, like, it's just nuts to me because, just as that guy said in that video, about the guy said in the video about was it in the UK or Ireland or whatever. He was talking about, how there's the Northern Ireland, was it Northern UK, it used to have a huge steel manufacturing base, and now all that is has dried up. But the fact of the matter is, when you let segments of society, you're like, oh, we don't need them anymore. We don't manufacture steel anymore. And you don't replace it with something. You don't shift the education. You end up with just a whole bunch of people that end up being a drain on, the system. You end up with crime. You end up with drugs. And at the end of the day, you just end up with a society that is just wasting human capital. It's just wasting it. There could be a kid in there that could crack the code on freaking warp drives or something. It could crack the code on nuclear fission, right? Could crack the code, get Q to be greater than one. All this sort of stuff. And it's like society doesn't care. It's so selfish from not only a racial standpoint but a class standpoint. I understand that everybody doesn't have, the same capacity, but it's like there's this attitude of, no, we don't want all people to have the same capacity. We don't want to increase it. We want to create a world where, again, we're on top. Like it's like Roman decadence. It's just get like five people at the top that are, that want to have a world full of slaves and somebody feeding them grapes. And I'm like, I don't that's a bullshit existence to me. You got slaves running around and shit like that. I'm trying to get to Star Trek. You know what I mean? And the way that the world is operating right now, we ain't never going to get to Star Trek. And all that's going to happen is just like what you see in freaking Russia with Ukraine, and fighting over limited resources. Like, bottom line, like, human civilization cannot expand if human civilization doesn't figure a way to get off this planet, because we live on a finite planet with finite resources and finite space. And they're talking about, we got 8 million people on this planet, and it's only growing, and it's grown since the Industrial Revolution. We're going to have to get off of this planet. But there's just like all this ugly, freaking dystopian future, whether it's, The Purge, or whether it's freaking what's that movie called, the one where they were on the train. What was that goddamn movie called, the freaking Snowpiercer or Elysium. These sort of dystopian futures where it's just there's this gross imbalance, when it comes to wealth and it's just such a waste. It's just such an incredible waste of human capital, and this is where things are going. Now, I'm talking like obviously what I'm saying is just way in the future, way, technologically advanced and all that shit. We ain't on no Star Trek shit. But, I'm just looking at where we are now and what people are saying, and I'm like, look, things are changing, rapidly changing and advancing. And you have these boomers that are running around and they're still just talking about, personal responsibility and freaking, oh, you need to go and find a job in the plant. The plant is gone. What are you talking about? Look at Detroit. What are you talking about? But anyway, I got to get ready to go. That's my video. That's all I got to say. That's my mind. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.